Morning guys, the last day we introduced the slope of a line and we showed you how to find the slope from rise over run or from the formula, and we talked about positive and negative slopes and we stopped there. Okay, so we're going to look today at parallel and perpendicular lines, and there's actually a section in the chapter later on that looks at this as well. But when you talk about parallel lines, a parallel line is, so you would have definitely come across these. I think when you're in primary school you would have talked to them, and even last year you would have talked to them as train tracks or something, or an example of parallel lines. They're two lines that never meet. Okay, and what we can tell about those, when you're talking about parallel and perpendicular now, I want you to think about slope. So what can we say about their slope? They're exactly the same, the slopes. Okay, they're exactly the same. So there you see on page 253 it says parallel lines have equal slopes. So any parallel line has an equal slope. And then you look at perpendicular. A perpendicular line, so if I have a line like this, a perpendicular line is a line that comes across like a T-junction, like a T. It meets it at right angles. So those two lines are perpendicular. And their slopes, we sometimes say are opposite, but that's not exactly right. It means that if you found the slope of that line and you found the slope of that line, when you multiply those two slopes, you'll get minus 1. So say for example if this slope was 2, or say we'll go a half, this slope would be the opposite of a half, would be minus 2. So flipped upside down and change the sign. When you multiply them you'll get minus 1. But we're going to explain that in a second. So what parallel slopes have the same slope, or sorry, parallel lines have the same slope. Perpendicular lines, when you multiply their two slopes, it would give you minus 1. Okay. So I'm going to go and do a table. The first thing I want you to take down is I want you to take down this parallel lines, and I want you to draw two parallel lines, and I want to say parallel lines have equal slopes. So take that down. Then I want you to draw two perpendicular lines. I want you to write, if two lines are perpendicular, the product of their slopes is 1, and then m1, the first slope multiplied by the second slope, is minus 1. Okay? Then I'm going to get you to do a table, and this is the table. Okay, I've drawn out a table. So slope, that's an m, you can't really see it. Slope m. Okay, I'm going to give you 8 slopes here. We're then going to write down the slopes parallel to those and the slopes perpendicular. And now look at this symbol for parallel. Okay, it's sort of two slanted straight lines parallel to each other, and an upside down T is the symbol for perpendicular. So take those down after you've taken down the previous notes. Right, if I have a slope, I'm going to write out the slopes here, so you take these down as well. So we'll go a half, 3, 2 over 3, minus 4 over 7, minus 1 over 5, minus 2, 7 over 6, minus 3 over 2. Okay, so we look at those. I've got the slopes. There are 8 different lines. A slope parallel to a half is the same. Parallel lines have the same slope, so same. The slope parallel to this will just be 3. The slope parallel to this will just be 2/3. Minus 4 over 7, I think you can see the pattern, minus 1/5, minus 2, 7 over 6, and minus 3 over 2. A parallel line will have exactly the same slope as the line it's parallel to. So that's nice and easy. If they ever say two lines are parallel, they have the same slope. A perpendicular slope is slightly different. You have to think, what number multiplied by half gives us minus 1? And an easy way to do this is flip the fraction upside down and change the sign. So a half flipped upside down is 2 over 1, or 2, and flip the sign, or change the sign, minus 2. And when you think about it, minus 2 times a half will give us minus 1. 3. 3 is the same as saying 3 over 1, so flip that upside down, it becomes 1 over 3, and changes to a minus. So a line perpendicular to this slope, or this line, will give us minus 1 over 3. We look at this. 2/3. A line parallel, 2/3. A line perpendicular, flip the fraction upside down. 3 over 2, change the sign, minus 3 over 2. 4 over 7, or sorry, minus 4 over 7. Flip it upside down, 7 over 4, change the sign, it's now a plus 7 over 4. So if this line is minus 4 over 7 slope, a line perpendicular will be plus 7 over 4. This one, flip it upside down, 1 over 5 becomes 5 over 1, which is just 5, change the sign, and it's positive 5. This one, minus 2, the same as minus 2 over 1, flip it upside down, 1 over 2, and it's positive. 7 over 6, flip it upside down, 6 over 7, and it changes to negative. And finally, minus 3 over 2, flip it upside down, 2 over 3, and because it's a minus, it changes to positive. So these lines, the first column and the third column, are perpendicular to each other. And if you're to multiply those two numbers, you get minus 1. Multiply those two numbers, you get minus 1. Those two numbers, minus 1. All of them, minus 1. And that's the yellow box that I got you to take down for perpendicular lines. Alright, so take down that table. That will give you an idea what parallel and perpendicular lines look like in terms of their slopes. And we're just going to do one example. Again, they could ask this in a number of different ways, so you mightn't see questions exactly like this. They give you 4 points. They say, show the line AB is perpendicular to CD. So, underline that word perpendicular. They're talking about, when you see parallel or perpendicular in terms of lines, they're talking about their slopes. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to find the slope of A and B and the slope of C and D, and we should be able to see that they're perpendicular to each other. Okay, so first of all, I'm going to write A is minus 1, 0. B is 3, 2. What do I have to do with them if you remember to find slope? I have to label them. X1, Y1, X2, Y2. I then write out my slope formula. Slope is equal to Y2 minus Y1 over X2 minus X1. You don't have to remember it, but you will. It's in your maths table, it's also in your book. Y2 is 2 minus 0 over X2 is 3 minus, and it's minus 1, so that's going to become plus 1. So it's 2 over 4, which is a half. Now we can predict what our slope of the other one is going to be, because if it's perpendicular, it'll have to be flipped upside down, 2, change sign, minus 2. So we're looking for minus 2 here. So we're going to do C is minus 1, 4. D is 2 minus 2. Again, get out my red pen, I'm going to label them. X1, Y1, X2, Y2. Write out my formula for slope. Y2 minus Y1 over X2 minus X1 equals Y2 is minus 2 minus 4, and X2 is 2 minus 1. Okay, always be careful with that. So that becomes minus 6 over 3. Minus 6 divided by 3 is minus 2. And to show, now you can see that they're perpendicular, but to show, you go back and you say that your first slope multiplied by your second slope should give you minus 1. So you just multiply the two numbers. A half times minus 2 does give us minus 1. AB is perpendicular to CD, and you can use that symbol. Okay, so if you're ever asked for parallel or perpendicular lines, find the slopes of the lines and you'll be able to see whether they're parallel or perpendicular. Okay, so I'm going to give you some questions. Some will be a bit different, so please do ask by commenting. I've had a good couple of questions, and again, if there's any questions, just post, reply to this, and I'll answer. And even if you hand it in late, doesn't matter. You can still hand it in with one not done and ask me, and then you can go back and fill it in just to help yourself. Okay, thank you.